Josh Hasten here, Israel Uncensored on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. Hope you're doing well in your part of the world. It is Monday, June 25th, 2018, the 12th of Tammuz, 5778. I am here in Jerusalem. Don't forget, you can always get in touch with me during the week. Josh at thelandofisrael.com on Facebook, Joshua Hasten on Twitter at Josh Hasten. After the break, there's a lot to go over in the world of news here in Israel and the Middle East. We'll get to that. But first, it took 70 years, but the first official visit by a member of the British royal family will begin in Israel this evening when Prince William, who is also known as the Duke of Cambridge, is scheduled to arrive here in Israel. That is front page of today's Jerusalem Post. So who better to speak to than someone who grew up in England, Mein Aliyah, does a lot of pro-Israel advocacy work here. He's actually the Israel director of BICOM. BICOM is an independent British think tank producing research and analysis to increase understanding of Israel and the Middle East in the UK. His name is Richard Pater, good friend of mine, and we are broadcasting from Jerusalem. Richard, welcome to Israel Uncensored here on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com.
Thanks, Josh. Great to be with you.
It's great to have you on the show on this historic occasion, the first official royal family member arriving here in Israel this evening. I want to start by asking you, what do you think the implications are of this royal visit? What can we expect from it?
Well, first of all, I think it's worth noting that, as you well know, that the British monarchy is a constitutional monarchy. It doesn't have any political power anymore. So unlike kind of the recent visitors of other high-profile political figures, this is purely in the realm of symbolism, but that's not to negate its importance. As you rightly say, this is the first ever formal visit of a visiting royal, and that in itself is quite substantial. My sense is that they probably wanted to come last year to mark the 100-year anniversary of the Balfour Declaration, but that was seen by some, at least perceived, as too political, given the Palestinian response. So to come now in Israel 70 years is kind of an appropriate marking for the royal family. It should also be noted that it's kind of in conjunction. He flew in yesterday to Jordan and spent some time with the king and seeing various projects there, and will also go over to the Palestinian Authority to meet Abu Mazen in Ramallah. So kind of the packaging for the royals, who are kind of trying to avoid any politicization of this visit, is about Israel, Jordan, and the Palestinian Authority, and kind of making the connection for all three entities.
So just to understand it, we have a president here in Israel, Ruby Rivlin. He also has a non-political position. Is this similar to, let's say, Ruby Rivlin, the president of Israel, going and visiting another nation? Is that a similar, fair comparison there?
I think it's a fair comparison if you were to compare President Rivlin with the Queen. That's the kind of, that would be the kind of the formal head of state. The prince is second in line to the throne after his father, Prince Charles, will one day take over, and then he's next in line. So kind of, but I think in terms of the way that the Israeli government and the protocol will treat it, they will treat it as if it's a visiting head of state, with all the furnishings.
But what do you think long-term, the implications in UK-Israel relations? Can the visit of the prince actually have a long-term impact on what goes on between the United Kingdom and the State of Israel?
Well, I'd say this, that the bilateral relations between Britain and Israel are in fantastic shape right now. I mean, they are based on both values and interests. But if you look at the interests for a moment, you have over 9 billion worth of trade between the two countries in 2017. Kind of the trajectory is only on the up and up. After the US, the UK is Israel's second largest export market, which is really substantial. I mean, the stats some of you might be familiar with, that 1 in 7 of the National Health Service drugs are made by Israeli companies. There is incredible cooperation in all sorts of other cyber fields and other economies and industries, as well as a very good intelligence sharing relationship and defense relationship. So I think the prince's visit will play on all of that. I imagine him tomorrow when he's in Tel Aviv, perhaps going to meet some of these high-tech companies, kind of meeting some of the youngsters around, and just augmenting that relationship and the strength of that the bilateral partnership.
We're speaking to Richard Pater, the Israel director of BICOM, an independent British think tank producing research and analysis to help understand the Israel-UK relationship. Now, your organization, BICOM, you put out a detailed guide to the prince's visit to Israel. I think it was like a 15-page, if I'm not mistaken, PDF explaining exactly what he'll be doing, where he'll be going, the significance of the trip, on and on. And everyone seems to be looking at his trip through a microscope. Every statement being released by the British royalty, the language, everything seems to be so important. And I want to reference here an article in the Friday Jerusalem Post by Melanie Phillips, who actually, she criticizes what she calls the notoriously anti-Israel Foreign and Commonwealth Office, the FCO, which has refused until this point an official visit to Israel by a member of the royal family. She also criticizes the terminology used in the itinerary of the prince, saying that he will be spending time in occupied Palestinian territories, including here in occupied Palestinian territories is the Jerusalem's Old City, the Mount of Olives. So here you have all this terminology which she criticizes coming out of the FCO, as it's called, the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. Yet she does, in her article, talk about how good the relationship is between the ministers and the government of England. She says Mrs. May, the Prime Minister of England, is a genuine friend of Israel and the Jewish people. So explain, if you can, this dichotomy between the FCO and what their statements look like versus what we're seeing from her and others, including Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson. For example, this week he condemned the UN Human Rights Council for discriminating against Israel. Explain that dichotomy between those two branches there in the UK and what it means for Israel.
Well, I don't think there's I mean, you're right to play up on kind of the distinction made between the policies. I don't think it's not a distinction between government bodies. The Prime Minister's Office and the FCO, the British Foreign Ministry, are of the same mind. I mean, as good as the relationship is, and I think it is very, very, very strong. There is no doubt that even as allies, they agree to disagree on some key aspects, and one of those key aspects, probably the most defining point of it, is what they regard towards Israel over the Green Line, kind of the post-67 lines of Israel, of which the FCO, kind of being articulating government position, has remained consistent throughout the time, which suggests that it can still seize it as occupied Palestinian territory. And until there is a resolution and some form of formulation in a peace process, that will remain the case. So then you have the anomalies whereby, clearly within the Israeli consensus, the old city of Jerusalem is part of a united Jewish capital. Yet for foreign governments like the Britain, and expressed by the FCO, it remains a point of contention. Although I will add that my understanding is that when the prince goes to the old city, it will be kind of further depoliticized, and it will be kind of qualified as a private trip, similar to President Trump and other visiting heads of state. So they will kind of avoid that controversy on the ground.
So, in addition to the old city, according to this 5 must-know facts about the trip produced here by the J Post. Visiting important sites, Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Ruvi Rivlin. One of the unique aspects of the trip, and this is something that I learned now just by reading some of the background you guys put out at BICOM, is the fact that the prince's great-grandmother is actually buried on the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem, what they're calling occupied Jerusalem, what I call Jerusalem. But this is something I never knew. I didn't realize that that the royal family had a relative, somebody who was considered a righteous among the nations. Apparently she saved lives during the Holocaust. This woman, Princess Alice of Battenberg, the prince's great-grandmother. What can you tell us about this story and the significance of the fact that he's going to be going to the Mount of Olives to visit her grave there?
So this is Prince Philip's mother. Prince Philip is married to Queen Elizabeth II. So this is, as you say, is the Prince William's great-grandmother. She was a Greek princess and decided during the Holocaust, when the Nazis arrived in Athens, to protect Jewish orphans and give them refuge. And for that, she was awarded, as you say, Righteous Amongst the Nations in Yad Vashem. She actually died in the UK, and then her body was only moved over to one of the churches on the Mount of Olives in the late 1980s, 1988, I think. And that's where, because that was where she was buried. Herself, her own grandmother was one of the princesses of the Russian princesses that was killed by the Bolsheviks in the Russian Revolution in 1917, and so she had decided that she wanted to be buried as well at the same church that her ancestors were also buried in Jerusalem.
That's pretty amazing. Something I didn't know. I think it's a fascinating history, and another historical aspect of this trip is the fact that Prince William is actually, you would think it's a minor detail, but Prince William is actually staying at the historic King David Hotel. He could have picked any other hotel in Jerusalem. I mean, I know that's where President Trump stays, and other royalty and other VIPs. But, of course, the King David Hotel, which its southern wing was British administrative military headquarters in 1946, the target of a bomb by the Irgun Tzvai Leumi, killing 91, including many British military members. The significance, if there's any, of the fact that here you have the Prince of England staying at the very place here in Jerusalem, our united capital, where a Jewish group, in fact, blew it up because of British policy towards Jews living at that time in British-mandated Palestine. What's the significance of that? Is it ironic? Is it special? What's going through your mind in regard to the King David Hotel and the history there?
So I don't think there's a particular headline on this issue. I mean, I just think it's the kind of the finest, most iconic hotel in Jerusalem, and is the kind of is where most visiting VIPs out of choice would stay, and I think it reflects, if anything, kind of the difficult relationship between Britain and Israel, obviously around the Mandate period over 70 years ago, but how far relationships have come that I don't think it's now become a non-political issue, staying at one of Jerusalem's finest hotels, and I wouldn't read too much into that historical baggage, although I'm sure it will the Prince will be made aware of it as well.
Still interesting, I think, nonetheless. I think kind of ironic. But let me ask you, Richard, will you or will BICOM be participating in any of the events while he's here? I know it's a whirlwind trip. I think he's on the ground here in Israel for a day or two. Will you be involved, or maybe will you be spending more time watching the success of the English football team at the World Cup, maybe spending more time there? Will your organization play any role while the Prince is on the ground?
So most of it's been covered by on kind of the formal track by the government to government. I have been invited to join the Prince, to meet the Prince at the British Ambassador's residence. Is hosting a summer garden party tomorrow night, so I've been invited to that, which will be very nice to attend. But apart from that, yes, absolutely, myself as other Brits are all enjoying the success of the World Cup, which is and fortunately there's no clash of games that England are playing between now and the Prince's departure. So the next time to watch England is Thursday evening.
I'm sure that was deliberate. I'm sure the Prince doesn't want to miss the game himself. With the success of the British national soccer or football team, but I digress. I want to thank you so much for your time and explaining what's going on here. The first official visit from a member of the British royalty, Richard Pater, Israel Director of BICOM. If people want to learn more about your important organization and the work that you do in pro-Israel advocacy and getting the message out specifically in the UK-Israel relationship, how can they find you guys?
Yeah, thanks, Josh. Our website is bicom, bicom.org.uk. You can see, we kind of focus on three aspects. One, as Josh has said, kind of the bilateral relationship between Britain and Israel. We look at Israeli politics. We look at Israel's relationship with the Palestinians, and also with great concern, the regional picture as well, and the role that Iran plays in particular, and a lot of focus on the regional picture as well.
Well, keep up the good work you're doing, and thanks for your time today.
Thank you very much, Josh.
We're going to take a quick break, be right back with everything going on in the world of news here in Israel. A Patriot missile fired yesterday in the north. A what they're calling a terror attack Saturday night in Gush Etzion, perhaps an accident, perhaps a terror attack. I'll give you all the details into that. My name is Josh Hasten. This is Israel Uncensored on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. Get in touch with me during the week. I love your emails, Josh at thelandofisrael.com, on Facebook, Joshua Hasten, and on Twitter at Josh Hasten. Quick break, and we'll be right back with the news.
Somehow, Israel has found itself in the center of some of the most dramatic events of this administration. The embassy move to Jerusalem, the Iran deal, and now because of the hypocrisy and the anti-Israel bias, the United States has officially pulled out of the United Nations Human Rights Council. The world is changing fast. This week on Israel Inspired.
Israel Inspired with Ari Abramowitz and Jeremy Gimpel on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com, sharing the truth and beauty of Israel with the world.
And we are back. Josh Hasten here. Israel Uncensored on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com for Monday, June 25th. 2018, the 12th of Tammuz, 5778. Get in touch with me during the week, Josh at thelandofisrael.com. On Facebook, it's Joshua Hasten, and on Twitter, at Josh Hasten. The IDF confirmed on Sunday that it fired a Patriot missile towards an unmanned aerial vehicle approaching Israel's Golan Heights from Syria. According to the IDF, the UAV was not hit and retreated from the border area following the missile launch. Now, if you remember, Iran sent over a drone into Israeli airspace just, I believe it was 2 months ago or so. In that case, Israel intercepted the drone, shot it out of the sky, and we later learned that that drone was, in fact, a armed drone, rather, and who knows what the situation is here, what the intention was. But the IDF firing a Patriot missile at this drone near the border with Syria. And, of course, Israelis capturing some of the footage on social media. I'm sure you can check that out. In other news, Saturday night right after Shabbat was over here in Gush Etzion. I heard a bunch of sirens, and lo and behold, the news was coming in that an Arab from a village here in Gush Etzion apparently tried to ram his car into a group of soldiers stationed here in the area. Later on, and this is where it gets confusing, later on it was reported that this Arab in fact turned himself into authorities, claiming that this was an accident, that he did not intentionally intend to run over these soldiers. So as of this broadcasting, there is a controversy, if you will, in terms of what the intentions were of this Arab driver. If in fact his goal was to kill the soldiers, why did he then turn himself in? It is not yet known exactly his intentions. Of course, we've seen dozens and dozens of car ramming attempts over the last several years, especially in Yehuda v'Shomron, in Judea and Samaria. Times of Israel reports 4 IDF soldiers were on foot patrolling when they were lightly injured when a car with Palestinian Authority plates ran into them near the entrance to the village of Husan here, that's in Gush Etzion. On Sunday, 2 of the soldiers were released from Jerusalem's Shaarei Tzedek Medical Center, while the other 2 were kept for observation. So thank God, only light injuries in this incident. Again, the question is, was this an accident or was this an attack? Now, according to Hadashot TV News, while the driver said he did not intend to ram the car into the IDF foot patrol and says this was a traffic accident, according to this report, the driver is known to security forces. In other words, they have information indicating that this individual perhaps was involved in terror attacks or the planning of terror attacks. In other words, he was known to the authorities. So that is suspect, certainly suspect. In addition, there's a report here that his brother was arrested 2 days ago. So is it a mere coincidence? 2 days after this gentleman's brother was arrested, and he himself was perhaps known he was on some sort of terror list with the authorities. Is it just coincidence that 2 days later there is an attempted ramming attack that he tries to run over soldiers, perhaps, or is it just a coincidence? Well, time will tell, and we'll keep you up to date on this story if, in fact, this was a terror attack or is it all a coincidence. We will get to the bottom of this one way or another now that he is in the custody of our security forces. Over the weekend, the kite firebombs continue to fly into Israel, and the balloons and everything else that the Hamas-led attempts to burn Israel to the ground, that still continues. Reported here by Israel National News. Sunday, police closed off a road in the city of Sderot after one of these devices was found in a populated area. The police bomb disposal unit prevented any danger to people living in the area, but this is still going on in southern Israel. You have the kite firebombs. You have condoms now being used as balloons with incendiary devices attached to them being dropped into Israel, and fields, thousands of dunam, or acres, if you will, have been burnt. And this continues unabated here in southern Israel. One of the top stories over the last several days, the U.S. administration so-called peace team arriving here in the region. Reported by Herb Kanan of the Jerusalem Post. On Sunday, Prime Minister Netanyahu met on Saturday night for the second day in a row with U.S. negotiators Jared Kushner and Jason Greenblatt, even as the Palestinian Authority continues to boycott the team and characterize them as, quote, spokespeople for the Israeli occupation. This is the Palestinian Authority talking here, accusing the U.S. team of trying to normalize what they call Israeli apartheid and dividing the Palestinian people. This is what the Palestinian Authority says. Also part of these meetings, U.S. Ambassador to Israel David Friedman and Israeli Ambassador to the U.S. Ron Dermer. The Kushner and Greenblatt tour of the region comes as the Trump administration is considering if and when to roll out a blueprint of a peace deal. This highly anticipated, I guess, peace deal from U.S. President Donald Trump. Of course, Trump recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Not that we needed any recognition, but the fact that he did it was great. But let's see where this goes. Let's see what is in this peace deal. If it is another Oslo-style deal, land for peace, if it calls for the establishment of a Palestinian so-called state here in Israel, in Judea and Samaria, it is doomed to fail, no doubt. Let's see where this goes. Times of Israel also reports that Jared Kushner said that he's ready to work with Palestinian Authority leader Mahmoud Abbas. This in an interview published on Sunday. So my question is, why continue to legitimize Mahmoud Abbas if this is an accurate report? Why work with this Holocaust denier, this terrorist Mahmoud Abbas, who has done nothing? What is he, in the 13th year of a 4-year term? Yasser Arafat's number 2 and current head of the Palestinian Authority from the Fatah branch, the terrorist Fatah branch, which continues to incite to murder on official Palestinian Authority television on a daily basis, on the radio, naming town squares after suicide bombers. Why continue to legitimize Mahmoud Abbas, especially after his recent anti-Semitic rant just several months ago here? So, according to this report, Kushner told the East Jerusalem-based Al-Quds newspaper that he is, quote, ready to work with Palestinian Authority President Abbas if he wishes, according to a translation carried by the Reuters news service. So you know what is actually here, I think, newsworthy is the fact that even though this is happening, even though it was on the front page of the paper on Sunday, you don't really feel that this is even going on. I'm talking about the U.S. delegation here in Israel. You don't have much camaraderie or enthusiasm. I don't feel it on the streets of Jerusalem that anything's really happening. That's my point, and I hope it stays like that, because as we have seen over the past 25 years, let's remember the Oslo Accords. We will be commemorating the 25th, I don't know if you want to call it an anniversary of the Oslo Accords this September. But after 25 years, we've seen delegation after delegation come to Jerusalem and fail because the Palestinian Authority, Fatah, those who claim to be our peace partners, actually want to destroy the entire state of Israel. Nothing has worked over those 25 years, and nothing will continue to work, or will begin to work, rather, because they want to wipe out the state of Israel. That's why the map hanging on Mahmoud Abbas's wall has the entire state of Israel with the word Palestine on it. So there's no hope for peace as long as that exists. And I'm hoping that the U.S. administration doesn't turn around and say, well, since we recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, since we moved the embassy to Jerusalem, I hope they don't start pressuring Israel to make concessions, territorial concessions to the Palestinian Authority. We saw what happened in Gaza when Hamas took over. We see the situation there today. And whether it's the PA or Hamas or any of these other terror organizations, let's hope there's no pressure coming from Washington, since everything so far has been good. I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop. I hope it doesn't happen. I hope I am wrong. So we'll have to monitor the situation, but it doesn't really feel like anything is going on the ground here in Jerusalem, here in Israel. Just so you get an understanding or a feel for what the people here aren't saying anything. It's like it's not even happening. It's behind the scenes. It's over the weekend. It's not really top billing the fact that the U.S. administration officials are here. Now, a few weeks ago, switching gears, down on the Gaza border, we've talked about it a little bit before, the situation down there. If you recall, there was a story of a baby girl who apparently died, at least the Palestinians, so-called the Arabs in Gaza, the Hamasniks in Gaza, claimed that a baby died from inhaling tear gas fired by Israel at the Gaza border. It made headlines around the world. This baby became the symbol of the evil Israelis, the evil IDF, carrying out massacres, as they claimed, on the Gaza border. Well, now it is known that, in fact, this baby died because she had some sort of illness. It was now admitted when the IDF arrested a relative of the baby, a man by the name of Mahmoud Omar, also a terrorist with Fatah's Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade. Remember them, who carried out those suicide bombings and shootings back in the Oslo War, or what some might call the Second Intifada. The relative of this baby admits that Hamas paid the family to claim that Israeli tear gas killed their child. That's how sick and twisted Hamas is in Gaza. As I tell people all the time, they are just like ISIS, but without the pyrotechnics, the sick pyrotechnics, without the public social media beheadings and torture and killings. They don't show that most of the time like ISIS does, but they are two sides of the same coin, even if those two groups might actually hate each other. Two sides of the same coin when it comes to their hate for the West, their hate for the U.S., their hate for Israel. So here they paid a family to claim that their baby died as a result of Israeli-fired tear gas, and it worked. It worked because the headlines picked up the story, and now that the story is perhaps, I don't know if the news organizations will retract it, now that we have the facts, it's too little too late. This is a blood libel against the state of Israel, claiming that Israel killed their baby, and this only encouraged and encourages more members of Hamas and those who affiliate or support Hamas to continue their acts of terror along the Gaza border. It only helps them, especially when you have the European Union and others, the UN, condemning Israel for doing what is necessary to defend our border with Gaza. So that's that blood libel story. Switching gears, the Jewish press reports there was a Chabad movement rally scheduled to take place in Tel Aviv. It's actually scheduled here today on Monday. Different sides of the story indicating different realities, and I don't know exactly what the truth is, but the background on this is Chabad decided, in honor of one of their former leaders, one of their former rebbes, decided to have this event in Rabin Square in Tel Aviv. And the Tel Aviv municipality and the mayor of Tel Aviv said, you cannot hold this Chabad rally in Rabin Square because there will be a separation between men and women, a mechitza, a separation. For those of you who have been to a Orthodox Jewish synagogue, or perhaps have gone to an Orthodox Jewish wedding, there are certain situations where men and women are separate. So instead of respecting the Chabad traditions, this city of Tel Aviv, which is supposed to be the most open-minded city in all of the Middle East, which is happy to host a pride parade and is happy to host all sorts of other events respecting many different groups in their beliefs, minorities, and what have you, for some reason decided that Chabad cannot have this separation. Again, they're willing to respect everyone, but apparently they won't respect the religious beliefs of Chabad, which doesn't want men and women sitting together. So we'll see if this event happens, but I'm very disappointed in the Tel Aviv municipality, which is supposed to be open-minded and respectful of everyone's religious beliefs. I'd be curious to know if this was a Muslim event being held in Rabin Square, and if Muslim tradition doesn't allow men and women to sit together in a public forum as this, if in fact the municipality would have canceled the event. I would bet that if this was a Muslim event where men and women were asked to sit separately, they wouldn't say a word. The fact that this is a religious Jewish event, the fact that this is Chabad, who Chabad, by the way, does amazing things all over the world for so many people, so many Israeli travelers and Jewish travelers, providing kosher food and meals and hospitality all over the world in nearly every country around the world. It's an amazing organization. But yet, for some reason, the open-minded, liberal-minded city of Tel Aviv, sadly, has decided that they don't want this event to happen, and it's scheduled for later today. Chabad said the event is still going to happen. We'll see if, in fact, the Tel Aviv municipality lets it happen, or perhaps there'll be guards standing there not allowing these people to have a rally in memory of one of their former leaders. Let's see what happens. Let's finish the show on some good news here. Some amazing charity work by Roman Abramovich, who owns the Chelsea soccer or football team, if you will, in London, England. As the Jerusalem Post reports, as hundreds of thousands of soccer fans were flocking to Russia to attend the World Cup, which is going on as we speak, a special group of Israelis also is taking part in the sights and sounds at the World Cup international competition. A group of 35 Israeli children with special needs or illnesses, organized by the NGO Fulfilling Dreams, arrived in Moscow last week to take in some of the games there in the soccer or football, if you will, tournament. The NGO, founded and run by UK native Gilad Salter, thanked one particular donor, Chelsea Football Club owner Roman Abramovich, who, by the way, recently made Aliyah to Israel, obtained Israeli citizenship. According to this J-Post report, he gave the group 320,000 shekels to cover the costs for these special needs children to attend the World Cup. So what a noble thing to do. This guy, and I've seen him in the news from time to time over the years, seems like a true mensch, a real mensch. So kudos to Roman Abramovich. We'll call him this week's Israel Uncensored on the Land of Israel Network's hero for doing what he did to bring these 35 children, fulfilling their dreams and their wishes, and letting them see World Cup soccer live in action. That's going to do it for today. Josh Hasten here on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. This is Israel Uncensored for Monday, June 25th, 2018, the 12th of Tammuz, 5778. Thanks for joining us here. Big shout out to Binyamin Bresky, engineer extraordinaire. Without him, there is no sound. Also, shout out to all the other wonderful show hosts here. Make sure you check out all of our shows on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. Be in touch with me during the week. Josh at thelandofisrael.com, on Facebook, Joshua Hasten, and on Twitter at Josh Hasten. Most importantly, between now and when we speak again, please God, next Monday, everyone out there in the wonderful world of ours, be safe. Shalom, shalom from beautiful Israel.
It's much more real than any reality show. It's much more dramatic than any drama. It's much more funny than any comedy. It's like a game show, but it's no game. It's our lives.
Listen to Inside Israel Today, with Gil Hoffman, political correspondent for the Jerusalem Post, every week on thelandofisrael.com.